Being President of the United States of America could statistically have the highest fatality rate out of any job. With a 5.6% chance of dying as a serving president, it's a hard score to beat. But other than death, there are many bad things to come for a president, so much so that a term is coined for such a line of coincidences, self-inflicted or not. While sitting in your government or your U.S. history class, you may have heard of it, and the name speaks for itself. It's a long list of presidents that, compared to their second term, is exponentially worse than their first. To political inertia all the way to fatal shortcomings, this is a small introduction to the second term curse. Unless you are sleeping in class, we know that the 16th President, Abraham Lincoln, was assassinated in Ford's Theater, Washington, D.C. The start of his second term was in the year 1864, then died a year later in 1865. Fast forward to 1873, Ulysses S. Grant, 18th President of the United States, following his second term, had a factoring involvement in the Panic of 1873 due to his monetary policy. With businesses growing came at a cost of money too scarce to finance it, along with his failed Reconstruction-era attempts to reinforce the rights of Southern African Americans. Former President Grant was involved in a number of scandals following his second term. There's more about his scandals listed than I can cover here, but one that's more impactful was his habit of nepotism. Despite it not being illegal at the time, over 40 family members were allowed benefits from government appointments and employment, leading to Senator Charles Sumner to coin a new label for Grant's political incompetence, Grantism. The second term of William McKinley, 25th president, was cut short by
Leon Czolgosz's .32 caliber Iver Johnson revolver.
Leon regarded McKinley as a symbol of oppression due to his turn of anarchism and losing his job in the Panic of 1893. William's popularity with his choices, often regarded imperialistic, was quickly overshadowed by President Woodrow Wilson. We've also learned quite a bit about 25th President Woodrow Wilson. 1917, the first year into his second term, was the same year Woodrow enacted the Espionage Act of 1917, the Sedition Act of 1918 following shortly after. The Espionage Act of 1917 was a law instilled to prohibit any interference with military operations and recruitment in an attempt to prevent insubordination within the military. The Sedition Act of 1918 illegally disallowed critiques of the U.S. and its political choices. This, of course, was very controversial, and shortly after these were enacted, the first Red Scare followed in its wake. Under Woodrow Wilson's presidency, probably the most questionable choices were made when the first Red Scare came into session. Those same choices were issued when the Great October Socialist Revolution in Russia, and more notably the anarchist bombings in 1919 events occurred. The anarchist bombings suspects were followers of anarchist Luigi Galleani, known as
Galleanisti.
Around 36 bombs were dispersed via mail inbox to many politicians who were either anti-immigrant and/or anti-anarchist. 2 people died, ironically including a bomber, with 2 injured gravely. The first Red Scare issued many rights being violated, including illegal searches and seizures at the slight suspicion of Russian association, along with unwarranted detentions and massive deportations of hundreds of suspected radicals. The first Red Scare also came with the increase of anti-immigrant nativist movements, beside the increase in antagonized views of Southern and Eastern European immigrants. Along with his failure to include the United States and the United Nations and his rejection to sign the Treaty of Versailles, former President Woodrow Wilson easily takes first place for the worst case of the second term curse.